This is for everyone's safety. But Lee Soku controlled his anger. The fake smile returned to his face, concealing that I was just a little excited about this wonderful performance. The leader of the ice gang stood in a corner, smiling contemptuously, thinking that the cunning Lee Soku did not expect to be dealt such a painful blow like this. And then guessed that Cho Young was probably about to chase him. In the inspection area, Jin Chun just woke up and got angry and cursed the motherfucker. One surprise after another. Suddenly behind him the sound of someone running like crazy was heard behind him. Panicked, he turned his head to look and saw Cho Young running towards her. He didn't want anyone else to overtake him, so he immediately jumped up and raced with her. At that time, at Gate 2, Dae Sung and the stone-headed monster were leisurely standing at the foot of the snowy mountain. The first floor was hot. The second floor was cold. He immediately criticized the person who designed this test for being lacking in salt, but the first floor did well, so he glanced over and praised it. Suddenly a tornado swept through and left behind a blue light. And the coordinates device in his hand also suddenly lit up. The cute drop of water returned, smiling brightly, spreading her arms out to announce congratulations to contestant 104, who was the first to reach the second floor. Dae Sung turned around and asked if the others hadn't arrived yet. So could he start now? The small drop of water immediately gives instructions. Each player will start at a different gate. The task of the second floor is to conquer the top of the snow mountain. It wished Dae Sung luck and then disappeared, leaving him standing tall and looking up at that towering snow mountain, thinking to himself that the height must be more than 5 kilometers. Around the snowy mountain, there are surveillance devices from above, so any fraudulent actions can be seen. Started clinging to the rocks, using support to climb up, silently cursing. It was really annoying. Annoyed, he turned to look at the surveillance plane, thinking that if this thing wasn't here, he would definitely have used magic to complete it. Hearing a noise below, he looked down and discovered someone had just arrived. It is said that even C or D level people, even if they are awakened, still have to earn money by doing manual labor. Jin Chun stood at the foot of the mountain and immediately cursed all kinds of damn words. Why does this game make them start at different points? If he continues to be provoked like that, he will go crazy. If you don't kill that bastard Dae Sung, you won't be able to vent Jin Chun's wrath. Suddenly he heard heavy footsteps behind him, immediately looked back and saw a small figure walking towards him. Jin Chun angrily continued to curse. What the hell is this? That person was the bald Jin Sang, who, thanks to his cunning, passed the first floor. The snowstorm that swept through made him freeze, hugging his body tightly, his nose constantly running, his limbs freezing and unable to move. Keep moving. It feels like Jin Sang's hair will fall out in 30 more seconds, turning him completely bald. Jin Chun, whose blood was hot, suddenly saw a surveillance plane, and immediately laughed with joy and anger that he had to deal with this fly guy first. As if he was participating in this exam. Killing people was his priority. At that time, the bald man still didn't know anything. He tried to slap his face to regain his reason, thinking about his dying relatives and having to continue fighting. Jin Sang tensed his ass muscles and shouted loudly. Not cold at all, but as soon as he finished speaking, a pile of snow fell from the slope in this direction, causing him to lose his balance and be swept along by the pile of snow. He cried for help but no one heard him. The person who caused the pile of snow to collapse was none other than the murderer Jin Chun. Vermin like that guy shouldn't appear here, so give him a ticket to hell. Inside the surveillance room, countless abbreviations were displayed on the screen, and no images were visible anymore. The IT team eagerly told them that the live broadcast plane was no longer working, and that the entire video was taped. Lee Soku calmly put his hands in his pockets and pretended not to know anything, using his sly eyes to guess that perhaps everything had already begun. Just hoping that Kid Jin Chun wouldn't ruin things again. The lofty snowy mountain peak is still waiting for the next person to reach the destination. The two contestants number 64 to 65 who just arrived are also cold on all 4 islands. Number 65 is still optimistic and says there will be no problem because they are the strongest alliance. As soon as he finished speaking, Jin Chun jumped down from nowhere, causing him to fall on his face. making grandchild number 64 gasp in fear. Jin Chun's sharp fingers grabbed its head. His body was as muscular as a lion. He stuck out his tongue with a ferocious expression. Using the Demon Lord's ampule was truly a miracle medicine. With just a little extraction, the power was buffed 100 times. Jin Chun arrogantly declared that he would kill everyone who dared to stand in his way. It's true that the poor, unlucky kids who arrived later than everyone else got beaten up. On the other hand, Cho Young was unaware of this and still used a stick deep into the snow mountain as a pedestal. Observing that the connection of the measuring equipment was too unstable, and that several planes near her experienced electrical interference and then immediately failed. A few rays of doubt appeared on her face. Dae Sung's side was no different. The plane near him was also seriously damaged. However, this is a funny thing for Dae Sung because now he can easily use his strength to climb up. Let go of your hand holding onto the rock and let yourself fall freely. Dae Sung smiled and called out the Dragon Slayer's armor. Please open it, waiting forever until he didn't have to use his muscles to climb the mountain. Dae Sung smiled with satisfaction and let himself fall faster and faster. Suddenly, a rotating light appeared covering Dae Sung's body. Cho Young heard the noise and was immediately stunned why the giant aura wave appeared here. Suddenly something flashed past her. A man with dark wings was flying straight to the top of the snowy mountain, making her terrified that 104 could use aura to fly. But Dae Sung didn't bother to care about his surroundings. Nor did he care who saw him calling for the aura wave to make his wings fly directly at the speed of light. Jinshin below was like a punching machine enthusiastically pounding down and down. Guy 64 was punched and lost all his teeth and couldn't move. While riding on it, I suddenly noticed something strange and turned to observe. A pair of giant wings were spreading wide and were about to fly to the top of the mountain. Thinking that everyone was as stupid as him, he got angry and guessed that the other guy had drunk some kind of ampin from the Happy Monster. Seeing that someone was about to overtake him, Jinshin immediately rushed towards the snowy mountain, shouting loudly that he would wait there 104. In the monitoring room, a strong voice rang out and immediately stopped the test. The owner of that scream was the sole enemy. He questioned the branch head. Shouldn't he prioritize the safety of the candidates above all else? Now the device is completely broken, so no one knows about everyone's safety. But the branch head just coldly told him to wait a little longer. The organizers are actively investigating the cause. Suddenly Lee Soku laughed loudly, trying to calm the mind by saying, "Could it be that those who are about to become hunters don't dare to take risks? If you can't overcome even these things, how can you become a true hunter?" Then he smirked and looked at Wang Junyoung, making him angry. As the head of the branch of the Hunter Association, which is the cradle of training high-level awakened people, being told that they are so black-hearted makes me involuntarily gasp. "Hey, you're playing this game right, or not?" Wang Junyoung asked straight, but Lee Soku, in addition to doing evil things, often didn't know anything, so he gave a devilish smile back. "Weak people are not qualified to become real hunters, brother? Or maybe my brother is too soft-hearted and finds this unbearable." The people from the association were silent. No one dared to get involved in the quarrel between these leaders. The leader of the ice spirit became angry, cursing that Lee Soku was truly a cunning poisonous snake. But he didn't care. His blood-red eyes sparkled with mischief, and coldly said, "Retire quickly, old man." Returning to the test, Dae Sung, thanks to the use of aura, quickly flew to the top of the mountain. In front of him was the gate of the 3rd floor. Dae Sung wondered whether he should end here or not. Then he activated his arms and leisurely walked to the gate. Cho Young cannot be so leisurely and neither can Jin Chun. Both of them were trying to climb to the top of the mountain as fast as they could. The snowstorm was still howling at the foot of the mountain and a hand suddenly appeared from the pile of snow. Then a pair of legs emerged. Jin Sang was immortal like people without hair who lived long lives. Lying down on the ground, face up to the sky, panting, crying bitterly because he had turned his back on himself and died again. Although he was just an ordinary person, not as strong as them, he still survived that landslide. Jin Sang sat up and shouted loudly that he was not dead. So he won. But then his face turned pale because of the cold. Cho Young up there also passed and smoothly entered the third gate. The cute water drop appears again and reveals the requirement in this level, which is to carefully move the path to be attacked by monsters and defeat the lucky monsters to receive points. Reaching 1000 points will complete. Cho Young exhaled a few breaths as he entered the place where darkness reigned, having to be careful to get used to the darkness. Suddenly hearing her name called from behind, she turned to look and saw Jin Chun in mutant form. The hot guy approached and asked her if she had seen the flying guy from earlier, meaning to leave out Dae Sung's whereabouts. Looking at Jin Chun suspiciously. What the hell is wrong with this guy? He smiled and praised her for being quick. But Cho Young didn't bother to respond, as if it was the sound of flies buzzing in her ears. Brush your ass first and tell him to stop talking nonsense and go your own way. You monster. Hearing that, Jin Chun's veins flared up in anger. And Cho Young is remembering leader Wang Junyoung's advice to be very careful with that guy 104. She frowned and pondered in her heart that on the first and second floors, 104 was always the fastest, but this third floor was not certain. Suddenly, the beeping sound from the guidance bracelet on his hand interrupted his thoughts. The system announced that the bracelet had an aura response error. Suddenly, a sharp beam of light flew across her waist, causing fresh blood to spurt out violently. She opened her eyes and saw Jin Chun growling. It was this bastard who had sneakily attacked her. He spoke cruelly, intending to eliminate 104 first. But who told her to keep hovering in front of me? Only blaming her fate for being too bad. Cho Young suppressed the pain and turned around cursing the son of a bitch to make him angry. Dae Sung reached the third floor and was actively completing his mission. He activates his fire technique with the special fire bullet skill, which, despite its weak firepower, still functions like a missile. After activating, 8 fireballs connected in a circle appeared in front of him, continuously shooting sparks that burned all the demon-headed monsters in front. Dae Sung ordered the Fire King to quickly deal with those demons. He immediately obeyed and used all his firepower to spray like a rocket at the monsters, causing them to burn to death. The monsters were dead after the attack just now. But Dae Sung was not very satisfied, so he criticized the Fire King for spending too much time defeating those whiskers. After that, he checked the score on the system again. It was still 530 points and had not increased at all. Dae Sung still needed 470 points to pass this level. Holding the fire sword in his hand to illuminate, he decided to deal with anyone he saw on the way. Back in the monitoring room, the branch manager is on a phone call. The other end of the line reported that the system's observation device could not be repaired. Lee Soku looked at the clock and silently felt proud. Deciding to give Jin Chun an ampule injection was the right decision. Then I glanced at Wang Junyoung on the other side and kept feeling sorry for him. Even if Cho Young comes back alive, he will become a cripple or half crazy. On the third floor of the contest, Cho Young's blood continued to pour out and gurgling on the floor. Gritting his teeth, he tightly closed the wound and secretly cast some magic that made her whole body radiate a source of energy to stop the blood from flowing anymore. Then angrily cursed at Jin Chun for checking. What are you doing, you bastard? To hit him in the direction. Jin Chun contentedly licked Cho Young's blood, his eyes flashing with a ferocious, I thought you would be easy to eat because you're just a weak brat. But isn't that an aura shield? His eyes glared, turned red and caught the card immediately. But Cho Young suddenly rushed forward and kicked Jin Chun in the face, causing him to fall backwards but still had time to break his foot. Anger flared up because he was secretly attacked. Jin Chun angrily cursed, damn, and stood up. But in front of him was only a white screen of smoke and dust. Smirking in disdain, this bitch was taught by Wang Junyoung to play hide and seek because she was too weak. Then suddenly laughed like a crazy person because this guy was really crazy. Not joking, Cho Young was able to escape behind a large rock and was sitting to regulate his breathing to treat the wound. He had to quickly stop the bleeding before proceeding with the next steps. But unexpectedly, Jin Chun popped his head out of nowhere and happily said, "Found you, brat." Cho Young was stunned and scared until his face turned pale. Without time to think, she quickly picked up her jacket and threw it straight at Jin Chun's face to obscure its view. Taking advantage of him not being able to see, she threw a kick into his lower body, causing him to scream in pain as if he were electric. Then she pulled her legs back as quickly as she could, raised her knee and hit him in the face with another blow. Jin Chun's knees hurt so much that he fell backwards, causing his shirt to fall off. His legs wobbled and his hands went up to cover his face. Cho Young's wound has healed a bit, and all around him exudes a special aura, standing strongly in a defensive stance like a true martial artist. To calm down this crazy guy, Cho Young immediately threw a powerful punch into Jin Chun's stomach, his sharp voice letting him immediately understand the problem. I'm Cho Young, the ace of the Ice Soul Gang. I got hit with that one attack that made Jin Chun vomit blood. The attack was so intense and powerful that Jin Chun couldn't keep up and fell to the ground, motionless, gritting his teeth and looking at him with contempt. Wang Junyoung always warned Cho Young that humans are becoming more and more corrupt and even dirtier than monsters. She didn't believe it then, but now she completely believes what he said. Cho Young hugged her stomach, let out a breath, then turned and walked away. This girl is gentle, not Tom. Tom also stomped a few more steps to stop this guy from giving birth. Wang Junyoung in the surveillance room still completely believes in Cho Young's abilities, because he raised her to be a stronger warrior than anyone. Back to Dae-sung, who is still struggling with the system signal he wears on his arm. This is fucking broken, because he killed so many demons and his points didn't increase. Dae-sung was scratching his head. What the hell were those people doing out there? He was about to go straight and ask them straight out, but in the end, he waved his hands and continued on, leaving behind the corpses of the giant centipedes he had just destroyed. Cho Young walked in vain, but after walking a long way, she didn't see any contestants, so suspicion suddenly arose. Suddenly, the wind blew by and blew Cho Young's hair, startling her. A dead body fell right in front of her. With just a glance, I knew that the bastard Jinshin had chased me. He hissed with delight. I found you again. Cho Young immediately ran away. That terrible murderous aura made her a little worried, so she just played the escape card first. Obviously she killed it, so why did it appear here? A leg as big as a pillar appeared right in front of Cho Young. Jinshin chased after her and used her move to counterattack. He knocked Cho Young down to the ground, smirked happily, then sat on top and used all his strength to punch her. She was beaten to the point that blood spurted out of her nose. Her face contorted with pain and tears. But Jinshin still did not let her go. He held her hair up and challenged her to fight back, making his blood boil even more. However, now Cho Young's body is as soft as vermicelli, and her resistance is an incomplete number. Jinshin was like a giant demon. He viciously grabbed Cho Young's hair, preparing to show her what hell on earth was, then immediately threw a powerful punch into Cho Young's stomach, causing her to vomit blood. Go numb. Jinshin bent down to look at her, smirked and told her to beg for it. Who knows, maybe someone will come to save her? After finishing speaking, Jinshin suddenly burst into hysterical laughter. I accidentally destroyed all the communication devices. I'm sorry. Hi, I'm rude. Cho Young's finger suddenly stabbed straight into her pupils, causing blood to spurt out. Painfully letting go of Cho Young, Jinshin fell to the ground in agony, screaming loudly. He tried to stand up with his eyes seeing nothing, angrily cursing this motherfucker while still fiercely raising his hand to cover his eyes. Cho Young was no better, but still had to use all his strength to quickly crawl on the ground, quickly escaping before this bastard recovered from his wound. While Jinshin gritted his teeth in pain, his eyes appeared what looked like maggots on the ground. Cho Young trembled and moved little by little in worry. Cho Young heard her name called and she was startled. Immediately after that, she was grabbed by Jinshin's large hand, which grabbed her by the throat and lifted her up high. Cho Young struggled weakly. At this moment she was like a fish lying on a cutting board, just sitting and killing. Jinshin's wound had healed, but he was so angry that because of Cho Young, the number of recovery times had decreased by 2. So he had to strangle this bitch to death. Aku. Jinshin was stunned by this unexpected call, knocking a tree branch on his shoulder. Dae-sung appeared, who didn't know when, frowning in annoyance and asking what the hell you're doing. Guy. turning back to see Dia Sung, the person Jinshin wanted to see the most. He happily threw Cho Young down on the ground in pain. His fate had come, so she was no longer valuable. He was less bored and laughed excitedly. Ayo, I was also looking for you. Thank you for coming to give me your life. As soon as he finished speaking, he immediately disappeared like lightning, suddenly appearing right behind him. A halo of rage preparing to launch an attack. Jinshin's cheap sneak attack did not make it difficult for Dia Sung. He disappeared in the blink of an eye and calmly walked towards Cho Young. He threw the attack with all his strength but missed in the air. Jinshin widened his eyes in surprise and bitterness. So how could he have missed? On the other side, Dia Sung was bending down to observe the injured little girl lying on the ground, saying that it must be very painful. Looking closely, he discovered that this girl was recovering on her own. So this was the type of self-healing. Then, he glanced back and saw Jinshin staring at him. This guy was probably angry because of his missed shot just now. Jinshin suddenly said that you look stupid but also talented. I like you. But Dia Sung didn't care. Coldly asking you if you did this. Hearing that, this brat thought he was talking about Cho Young. So he laughed and joked, making a gesture of trying to explain. That bitch doesn't know how to be reasonable, so I'll just teach you that. You'll soon be like him, so it's not worry. But he coldly said no. I mean, you were the one who destroyed the scoring device. Right? Then put the fire sword forward in an attack stance. Hearing that, Jinshin was as happy as finding gold. He immediately slammed his hands together and tried the lightning dance technique, causing his whole body to erupt in a powerful aura, causing his scoring circle to suddenly react. Jinshin was so busy killing that he completely forgot about this incident. Thanks to him telling him, he remembered its existence. But now it's broken again, so Dia Sung just practiced identifying it. Before he could continue speaking, a hand punched him in the face, sending him flying away. Damn it, he was punched in the face again. His stomach and mouth were full of surprise. Blood from his mouth and nose was pouring out. Dia Sung immediately called out fire flame. 8 fire circles appeared in the blink of an eye, constantly spewing fire straight towards Jinshin, causing him to completely grit his teeth and quickly raise his hands to protect his body first. The fire was ferocious. Frustrated because he dared to use this trivial thing to fight it. 1 second he was eager to fight. The next second his eyes widened in horror. Because what appeared in front of him was the hateful name 104 with an army of demons following him. Just like some adulterers, but this guy was full of dark magic. The studio from hell would like to respectfully introduce the film, Going to the Land of the Dead, with the participation of supporting characters such as a giant buffalo-headed man with a horse face, specifically the Demon King, continuing followed by the Desert Wolves and finally the Dark Souls. And the main character, of course, Dia Sung, is scowling and starting the movie with the sentence, "That guy. You're making your father hot, son." Returning to school, the short-haired secretary informed the branch manager that the system on the 2nd floor had been restored, and the 3rd floor had to wait another 30 minutes. He ordered a security team to be sent to the 2nd floor to guide them to the 3rd floor because he had a premonition of something bad. Lee Soku sat on the other side calmly drinking tea, thinking that they were all hunter candidates, but you guys were making too much of it, causing Wang Junyoung to hear him angrily curse under his breath. He was indeed a poisonous snake. The control room door suddenly opened. The staff quickly ran to whisper a report to the manager's ear. On the 2nd floor there was a person killed and many injured, making the branch head pale. Lee Soku tried to suppress his triumphant smile and secretly glanced over. On the contrary, Wang Junyoung was extremely worried about fighting Kok Cho Young and didn't know what to do. The current news was broadcasting a hot news while hearing about the incident where the broadcast of the Hunter exam was interrupted for over an hour. Chan Ho, sitting in the office, also saw this news and was extremely worried about his best friend. So he rushed to the exam site. At that time, on the 3rd inspection floor, the sound of someone's heavy breathing kept repeating, "A." It came from Jin Chun, the guy who ran away immediately after seeing the classic poster of Dia Sung and his accomplices. Yeah, while running, suddenly my leg officially broke up. I only had time to let out a painful howl and then fall face down on the ground. Gritting his teeth, Jin Chun was horrified and could not accept the truth. Plus he only had one chance to recover. I heard that the bugs in hell also know how to restore their bodies when broken. Are you like them? I mean, what's the difference between saying it's the same, recovering the body, or the same as being a bug? It's too dark to curse. Jin Chun now knew he was scared when he saw Dia Sung coming in front of him and couldn't run away. He opened his mouth and screamed like a girl seeing a ghost in a horror movie. At that moment, the connection was restored to the big screen surveillance camera. Instead of gloating happily, Lee Soku's face showed surprise. Because on the screen was showing the scene of Jin Chun's grandfather kneeling on the ground begging for Dia Sung. His whole body trembling, Jin Chun kept begging him to spare his life because he only had one more chance to recover. But Dia Sung touched his chin and thought, "You still have him again. Then you're dead to Dad. He has to cut this guy in half to see with his own eyes how he recovers." Hearing that, Jin Chun was very upset but still bowed his head with a guilty look. If he was cut in half, Go L1's power wouldn't be enough to restore his whole body. Dia Sung felt something glowing on the other side that looked like a camera. Want to try to see if it still works? Dia Sung looked authoritative from above and said he would forgive him if he answered all 3 questions honestly. Hearing that, he was startled, made a face and asked again, "Is it true, brother?" Dia Sung didn't answer, but suddenly pulled out the fire sword and poked it straight at the top of the blonde man's head, making him almost afraid to pee his pants. He coldly threatened to cut Jin Chun in half if he discovered that he dared to lie. The fire sword immediately flashed sparks, making Jin Chun tremble and obey. First question, "You're the one who messed up the test, right?" When asked by Jin Chun, Lee Soku was startled, revealing a look of horror. Wang Junyoung listened and answered back with anticipation, unable to help but be curious about the answer to this question. The control room was silent. Everyone turned their eyes to the screen waiting for Jin Chun's answer, looking like a caught puppy. Jin Chun's face could not hide his worried expression, making Dia Sung impatient and wanted to cut it in half to relieve boredom. After all, you can still recover if you die. Jin Chun panicked and knelt down on the ground. "I was wrong. Can you apologize?" Dia Sung touched his chin with thoughtful eyes. Surely someone with a stupid mind and developed limbs like blonde hair could not have messed up the entire test alone like that. There must have been someone behind him to prevent him from doing so. Back for it. This terrifying silence made Jin Chun gulp in fear. Dia Sung smirked and asked the next question. "So who gave you the order?" Immediately facing the fatal question, Jin Chun panicked, but the most important thing was to come back alive, so just answer honestly here. "I don't have the right to 50-50 support. It's life or death. I don't talk much." So he clearly blamed all the blame on the leader of the Crimson Demon Gang. The goal of the competition was secondary. The important thing was to weaken the forces of other gangs. "I was just following orders." Dia Sung was completely ignorant about the Hunter Gang, so he had to pin that name until he could deal with it later. But the people in the control room knew who Jin Chun was talking about. So they turned to look at Lee Soku with bullet-shaped eyes. Why are they talking about the leader of the Crimson Demons? Lee Soku. Who else comes here? He didn't dare say a word. He sucked on 2 pieces of beef that were so hot he couldn't utter a sound. The catfish's face kept changing. "You damn Jung Jin Chun. You're definitely dead." Playing it back, he immediately took on the role of the victim and shouted angrily, "That bastard blamed me to get his life spared. Quickly arrest him." Suddenly someone called his name, causing Lee Soku to fall silent. The manager was now extremely angry, demanding that he be taken to the Hunter Investigation Bureau. He was sweating profusely. How could he escape the crime now? First, he had to regain his composure and think about it later. Lee Soku adjusted his tie and bowed his head, agreeing to stop by to investigate when appropriate. Seeing Lee Soku humble himself like that surprised everyone. Basically, he is a proud person who doesn't know how to bow to anyone. Today is the first time. He had to leave in frustration, cursing Jinshin as he went, saying that that bastard dared to bite his master back without even thinking about his gratitude. He would definitely chop it into hundreds of pieces. Grind it into bran for the demons to eat. Angry, the guard behind the prison asked. Captain, do you really have to bow your head like that? Lee Soku stood still and cursed that guy for being stupid. If he accidentally uttered a wrong sentence, Wang Junyoung would immediately close his case. But now he doesn't want to go in there and lie down. So even if he has to endure 9 humiliations, he has to endure it. Lee Soku left and then Wang Junyoung showed his anger. His whole body emitted an aura, looking like anyone who touches your father will immediately turn pale. The branch head understood and respectfully bowed his head to thank him for trying to restrain himself for the sake of the association. Wang Junyoung twirled the brim of his helmet. Don't be under any illusions. I didn't do it because of the association. Turning his back to leave, Junyoung silently decided that he would definitely deal with this group of trash once and for all. Forever. The manager called security to come and end the test, at the same time activating the emergency security team and evacuating the injured. Inside the testing system, Dia-sung raised his finger number 3, signaling to move on to the third question, causing Jin Chun to be so scared that he asked what he was asking. He's right back to work. You can still reincarnate a few more times, right? Hit by a black heart again. Jin Chun was scared and pretended to be stupid. But inside, a tsunami arose. If I lied, I would be cut in half. But if I said I only had one more reincarnation, I would be cut. No matter how I answered, I would be cut in half. At that moment, the system announced that congratulations to Dia-sung for getting first place. The test was over, and thanks to that, Jin Chun escaped his 83rd life. As for Dia-sung, he was upset. What was so sudden? Seeing that, Jin Chun still knelt on the ground and immediately started flattering him like he was singing. He was truly an excellent S-level hunter. But a sword blade slid past his face. Dia-sung turned around and glared at Jin Chun. He didn't want to hear such nonsense words, so he just crowed and cut them off to avoid wasting the third question. At a certain company, the white-haired and bearded president was extremely excited. Since Lee Chong-shik's time, a monster like this had appeared. Extremely pleased with Dia-sung's excellent performance, he pointed to his file, asking Secretary Lee to make Dia-sung one of their people at all costs. Beautiful Secretary Lee stood next to her and respectfully bowed her head to obey the order. At the Korean Hunter Association, journalists had already surrounded the lobby, whispering to each other about the Crimson Demon incident. They guessed that this time the bandage was broken. But there were still people who thought those words were just baseless accusations from Jin Chun. The exam organizers are releasing announcements about the events that just happened. From the beginning of the exam to the end, there were countless problems, so the system decided to use the results of the first gate as a measure. Some people disagree and say that the criteria at the first gate are not too easy. The system suddenly appeared the face of Class 1 Dia-sung, who was granted a Class A license. At the same time, Chan-ho also arrived at the headquarters and tried to contact Dia-sung when he heard that he was in the waiting room for S-level hunters, making him surprised why his best friend was there. Oh, why did Dia-sung take the A-class license and enter the S-class VIP room? The sunlight shined on the cup of coffee placed on the table. Right next to it was Dia-sung wearing comfortable clothes, relaxing on a majestic massa chair like a folding chair. The door to the room suddenly opened with a frantic call. Dia-sung, are my friend and I okay? Realizing that his friend was actually in the VIP room, Chan-ho hadn't been allowed in yet and was confused and excited to ask what was going on. But this god was also ignorant, only knowing that the competition had just ended when the chairman's secretary told him to come here to rest. Chan-ho's eyes widened in surprise. How could my friend be so terrible that the association secretary invited him to go? Dia-sung leisurely drank coffee and calmly recounted that he was considered an A-rank hunter with the potential to rise to S rank. After hearing this, Chan-ho kept exclaiming, "Oh shit, you're about to get rich. My friend." Dia-sung happily nodded. After 4:30, I don't know who's richer than who. Ho ho ho. Chan-ho pointed out that people out there are now going crazy with that potential, and proudly said that he is ready to be as sought after as the A-list pick. In the lobby of the Hunter Association, The crowd had covered the exit. The reason was because today there was the appearance of a world-class gang. They wanted to come to recruit talented hunters in the area. Suddenly, the elevator screeched. The number above jumped to number 1. And a person stepped out, causing everyone to turn their eyes to look. It was someone from the association. Not a brother. Then he immediately rushed up to surround that person. Flashing lights flashed continuously before a familiar-looking bald man threw bullets. Jin Sang now wears a less stupid suit. He couldn't help but clench his hands and scream out loud. He finally passed the hunter's test. The reporters thought this was the person they were waiting for, so they began to scramble to ask each other what his name was. The old man shyly adjusted his tie and uttered the words Dia Sung, making them think that this was the real Dia Sung. His eyes were as bright as a car's headlights. Everyone rushed to ask about the accident that happened during the test, trying to get an answer that would be published in the newspapers. Jin Sang was startled by the chaotic scene ahead, telling them not to push. But they still rushed forward like hungry leeches, asking him to explain in detail the strange skills he used in the competition, as well as other things happened in there when Orange was lost. But suddenly someone vaguely shouted that there was something strange about this name. His face was completely different from Dia Sung. Right after that, the screen behind him showed rank 20 Jin Sang with a general hunter license, just like his face. In another development, the injured contestants were helping each other out of the gate, and whoever he married did not treat his wounds. One person was scared and wanted to go back to his hometown to raise fish and grow more vegetables rather than work as a hunter. Others were busy cursing Jin Song for daring to do this. But luckily he didn't lose his life. There was a bribed security guard who observed and listened to the surrounding situation, then picked up the phone to report. They checked all over the 3rd floor but could not find Jin Chun's body. Hearing something on the other end made the other guy immediately close the gate and then growl in anger, not thinking that Jin Chun could escape. At Dia Sung's house, a news report about the hunter competition was broadcasting, mentioning the difficulties and accidents that the contestants had experienced. Dia Sung's mother was packing his clothes while listening to the news, and was also planning to buy some new clothes, thinking that her son wore the same outfit every day, making readers think he was a military fashionista. Suddenly the TV showed a picture of him, an A-level hunter with unique skills, predicted by experts to be considered for the 6th position in the S-level. Seeing that, the mother's eyes widened. I couldn't hide my surprise. What the hell was going on? Then loudly called out to my youngest child Jisoo, startling the whole house. Jisoo hurriedly ran out to ask what was going on, only to see her mother holding her face and staring at the TV. While the mother trembled and asked what the news was saying, Jisoo's expression was no different from the mother's, shocked beyond words. The older brother, who always had an upturned face as if he hated the whole world, was actually an A-level hunter. Oh sausage. Oh village. Click. The door of the house slid open. Dia Sung slowly walked into the house, saw the strange horrified expressions of both mother and sister, making him not understand what they were talking about. Seeing that it was strange, they were scared and laughed and asked, "What's the matter again?" At the headquarters of the Red Devils, Kim Sung-soo, the leader of investigation team number 2 and an employee named Jong Ji-yu, are announcing a strict ban on all hunting-related activities of this gang. Hunters will also be expelled from the guild according to government orders. Lee Soku, who was sitting in the chairman's position, mockingly said, "Since when did the people of 6 Poisons become such a farce? He put too much trust in Jung Jin Chun and then got stabbed in the ass by that bastard." But that still couldn't bring him down. The only person who can knock Lee Sok Ji-yu down from the peak of fame is himself. "Please cooperate with us in the investigation." Kim Sung-soo spoke coldly when he saw that the leader did not react, but he grinned and giggled, banged the table and stood up, coldly protesting. It's a common occurrence for a person at the top of society to be hated. Why do you only believe in the words of a scoundrel like Jin Chun and then demand to carry him to the ward, or is this just an excuse to arrest me? Kim Sung-soo was angry, transformed into the power of an awakened person, said nonsense and explained it 100 clearly. Don't force me to use force. But Lee Suk-ji-yu also started preparing for battle. He curled his lips and asked, "Do you know how I got to where I am today? How could I not know the 6 poisons?" Lee Suk-ji-yu, the second in command, surpassed the first place. Right after the guild's mysterious death, there was enough indirect evidence to show the death of the guild's leader. It's related to him, but no one dares to come forward and expose that crime. Old man Park Young-ho is about to lose his mind, so he dares to send 2 rabbits to arrest me. He angrily threw out red threads and a powerful stream of evil energy. Seeing that, the team leader shouted loudly to Young Ji-yu, who was standing behind him, to prepare himself. He was also absorbing purple evil energy. Correct. Being attacked. His subordinates were scared and said they couldn't fight Lee Suk-ji-yu. Everyone knew how great his strength was. But he said, "If you don't want to die, you have to kill him first and then continuously channel the energy in your palm." Seeing someone acting so shocking made Lee Suk-ji-yu even more confident and smiled mischievously. Everything happened exactly as he planned. Let me prove to you that this position of mine is not simply natural. No. Having said that, he waved his hand to attack his evil spirit forward. Before he could dodge, the team leader was stabbed in the back by a subordinate holding a knife. Kim Sung-soo glanced behind him and called that name, surprised to the point of horror. How could he suddenly attack him? His subordinate cried bitterly, frantically apologizing, saying it was not his doing. Lee Suk-ji-yu on the other side was becoming more frantic than ever, waving his hands and continuing to cast magic on the threads. "I know exactly what I just did. But I still asked a teasing question. There are so many problems within your inspection department. Let me prove to you that this position of mine is not simply something that comes naturally." He raised his hand to attack with his evil energy forward. Before he could dodge, the team leader was stabbed by a subordinate with a knife. Just one stab in the back. Kim Sung-soo glanced back and called that name, surprised to the point of horror. How could he suddenly attack him? His subordinate cried bitterly, frantically apologizing, saying it wasn't his doing. Lee Suk-gu on the other side was becoming more frantic than ever, waving his hands and continuing to cast spells on the threads. "I know exactly what I just did. But I still asked a teasing question. There are so many problems within your inspection department. So that's your ability?" Kim Sung-soo couldn't believe it. Blood began to spurt from his mouth. Lee Soku said goodbye to him one last time and then used his puppet's powerful energy, causing the arrows to shoot out and deliver a finishing blow to him. Sung-soo screamed in terror, and was controlled by the gang to continue stabbing the captain until he had no more blood to shed and collapsed to the burial floor. Shin Cho-young has been in a coma for several days, but leader Han Bang is still trying every means to cure him. Even though the doctor said that she was no longer able to be a hunter because her Oro center had been completely destroyed, he remained silent, his eyes streaked with blood, and the veins on his forehead showed unmatched hatred. Wang Jun-young decided it was time to pass judgment on the poisonous snake Lee Soku. Returning to Dia Sung's house, the mother slammed the cup down on the table. Expressing extreme anger, she was completely against her son doing this job because it was too dangerous. His sister also nodded in agreement. She didn't want her brother, who had just recovered from his illness, to fall to his death. Every mother will be proud when her son achieves great but dangerous achievements.